Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure.
Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
Welcome into the Garden Report. You were looking at Kristaps Porzingis working out on the off day, media availability prior to Game 5, which is going to be tomorrow night. John Zanis and Bobby Manning here, and Kristaps Porzingis did not speak to the media today. Take that for what you will. He walked around, kind of shot, kind of didn't do much. And for those hoping that Kristaps Porzingis may come and save the Celtics, not that they need saving, but may come and aid the Celtics in their quest for Banner 18, today may have given us a more definitive view or answer on what is going on with Kristaps. We'll talk about that. And here we are, Bobby Manning, John Zanis, Garden Report. Bobby and I were at the Garden. We'll be joined by Josue Pavone in a little bit. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all those who celebrate, or you're celebrating your fathers or future fathers, whatever have you. Happy Father's Day to all out there. I hope for the dads you had a nice, relaxing day. And for those who aren't dads, I hope you honored yours in the most deserving way possible. But let's get into kind of what we're talking about today. And look, a lot's changed, right? Just in terms of vibes and perception over the last 24, 48 hours. It's tough to kind of rein it in, Bobby, like what we were thinking or feeling after that blowout, because it was like so unexpected, the Game 4 blowout. And I think a lot of people wrote it off quickly, like, okay, it happens, right? And I think over the last day or so, I've seen people really whip themselves into a bit of a frenzy. I'm seeing a lot of stuff online right now about how this is must win for the Celtics. They don't want to go back to Dallas, and then Game 7, blah, blah, blah. And we went from the Mavericks aren't on the Celtics level and this is an absolute blowout to holy shit, I'm starting to get worried. So where in between those two extremes are you right now? And I'm curious where the people in the chat are as well.
I mean, realistically, you shouldn't worry about them losing this series at all. Because the lead is so substantial, and we'll compare it to last year. Obviously, a different matchup, Celtics Heat, different skill level on both sides relatively in that series. So you were in a good position as Boston to make that run coming off the 0-3 deficit. In this circumstance, it's a much different balance here where the Celtics have dominated this matchup. Now, things have changed. And what you don't want to do is mess around, because each night you mess around, and they certainly messed around and admitted as much today in a couple of different spots. You're putting yourself at extra risk of more things going wrong. And many things have gone wrong to this point. We were counting them all with Kevin O'Connor on our hit we did in Dallas to wrap Game 4, John. Dallas's role players got going. Porzingis, as you mentioned, they're probably out of the picture at this point. You're losing the non-Porzingis minutes in this series by 10 points per 100. So then just keep going down the line. Dallas has flexed its rebounding advantage on Boston. Now you have to contend with that if you're the Celtics. And the worst part to me is that every Dallas role player found some sort of confidence to build on going into Game 5 in that Game 4. Not that they're all going to have good games again, but if have to, of those guys who played well in that Game 4, that's a much different dynamic. And you said it yourself, John, every game from this point on is going to be much closer to 50-50. I know the line's pretty substantially in Boston's favor in Game 5, and I actually feel pretty good about Boston taking care of this business with a representative effort in Game 5, a seriousness that probably will get woken out of them by what happened in Game 4. But Dallas is still in a decent position to steal that game, given where both teams are at going into this one. And some stuff's going to have to change on that Boston side. Not a ton, but you're coming out of a game as the Celtics where you did nothing well. And so you're starting again, trying to get back to what you did early in the series. And the tough part is so much of what you did great early in this series stem from Porzingis' availability and his ability to just tilt the scale massively in Boston's favor in those games 1 and 2. So game 3 was tough, right? Game 4 was horrible. And so that's what you're looking at now in terms of the dynamic of the series, because Porzingis isn't going to save them.
That's kind of what I said. So, I mean, after Porzingis got hurt, my thought, and again, thank you, Luis, longtime viewer of the show, and all of you out there, spending, a piece of your Sunday and piece of your Father's Day with us today. We do appreciate it. Yesterday was a travel day, so we didn't get a chance to talk to you guys. So we felt it'd be worth it to come back out and just kind of, get a lay of the land and talk about what's going on here. And yes, please smash the like button. It does help us out when you do that. And subscribe and follow as well would be great if you don't already. Yeah, Bobby, that's what we said. That's what I said, and that's kind of my feel. When Porzingis went out after game 2, once they announced what the injury was, my thinking was, we're not going to see him again. Or if you see a version of him, it's going to be so limited that it might not be worth it. And it's not being pessimistic. He tore something. He can't move around. We don't know. So that was the vibe. And then up 2-0 was great because you had a big cushion. You go up 3-0, winning a game without Porzingis. You feel good that you can win the series without him, no doubt. And now it's 3-0. Mavs have to be perfect to win it outright. So by no means do I think the Mavericks are going to win 4 straight games. However, as we said, every single game they play, to me, is a 50-50 without Porzingis. It's you're closer to their level. And there's things you do and things that they do to you that are problems and bigger problems because Porzingis isn't around. The matchup problem that the Celtics presented with Porzingis, both offensively and defensively, was more than Dallas could handle. And it's why I had this as Celtics in 5 before this series began, because when Porzingis was healthy and playing, I didn't think there's any chance Dallas could stay with the Celtics. Now it's questionable that whether they can or can't. So I don't know how much stock to put in it. All I do know is, they made life hard. We're looking at from the fourth quarter on, from game 3 and all the way through game 4, the Celtics offense looking like shit. Bad. And that's the only thing that concerns me is they haven't had one of their games yet. They haven't broken 110. They haven't gone out and been lights out. Jason Tatum is still shooting like crap. They haven't had a 40+% from 3 game. I think that's coming. I think that could be coming in game 5, but it hasn't happened yet. So you do want to start thinking how much of it is the Mavericks doing that to them, that they're not able to just catch fire and take off and have their offense be the way it was. I mean, this is, again, historically one of the greatest offenses, statistically speaking, ever. And they haven't gone off for one of their 120+ games yet. So you're wondering if that's right around the corner, or it's something that, they might not be able to get there, and maybe not get there without Porzingis. So I do start to worry there that if they don't have a balls out defensive effort, the offense might not be able to carry them as it had so many times this year. And again, I'm talking game by game. I still find it highly unlikely that the Mavericks can whip off 4 straight, because you're talking about being perfect and the Celtics never having, a great offensive game, which they've yet to. But, that's game by game. That's my general feeling here, is that's my concern as you enter each game.
Yeah, and they went so cold offensively in that game 4, which Joe Mazzulla talked about today, impacting their defense. I know Sam Hauser said today they didn't reach an appropriate level, or the level they're capable of on defense individually, and that was another thing that went against Boston in that game. Those individual efforts you were getting on Luka and Kyrie waned in a big way there, and those two both broke loose for big games there. So that's a real strength you had over Dallas, is that you could defend them one-on-one. Now there's some level of doubt over whether you're able to do that. You were able to ignore many guys on that Dallas side, including Derek Lively in the corner. You wouldn't even give it a second thought about leaving him there. And all of a sudden he hits a 3. And then today at practice, you just saw him hitting 3 after 3 after 3. Is that a dynamic now? Is that a possibility in this series that he could take another one of those, or maybe 2 in a game here or there? Kidd talked a little bit about getting away from some of the triple teaming that they're doing on Tatum and other guys to pack that lane. So they're defending a little more straight up and had some success with that. Took away Boston's passing game. a little bit there, forced some turnovers. And Tatum and Brown were terrible in that game. So does
Terrible.
that carry over? Is there any pressure to playing in front of that Boston crowd that's raring to win the championship and is just going to be going bonkers all night? The one thing that makes you feel a little bit better is they're obviously past that point and that mindset going into Friday night that we're doing it tonight, because it was so obvious that it was going to happen that night to them, and they were getting ready to celebrate, and they were getting ready to do the Kristaps thing that we talked about, and I'm sure they had the places all booked out ready to celebrate in Dallas. Today felt a little bit more back to basketball, and that's what it needs to be, right? Because when the Celtics put the emphasis on the details that they need to, and they execute at the level that they need to, and there's that level of focus, it's going to look completely different. You're just left wondering how much of what Dallas did will continue and matter coming out of that game. Because, yes, the Celtics didn't show up, but I do think Dallas did a lot of good stuff there. They got a lot of good individual efforts. So many guys woke up there that you expected to impact the series the way they did in that game 4. I think of Gafford 6 straight points and blocking Tatum. That's the kind of defensive presence he had during their run. Lively, who was so bad early in this series, had that kind of energy and impact on that game. Washington shot 2 or 3 from 3. That's what he was doing for them. So do those guys keep giving you stuff? If they do, it's an even game going into game 5.
More so,
and that's where you get back to crunch time and all the rest.
Among the things I liked that Dallas did, I thought I found it really interesting that Gafford got subbed out so quickly for Lively in the first quarter. I mean, that was like 2.5 minutes or something, which is, I don't know if it was by design or instantly they just didn't like the coverage Gafford was getting, because the Celtics have exploited him trying to kind of play that one-man zone, right, where he's just staying down there and he's trying to get out to the shooter. And with good ball reversals, and he got caught a lot of times in that last game. You saw whether it was someone off a screen sealing their opponent and getting a layup inside as Gafford did cheat to the corner, or not getting to the corner quick enough and a very good ball reversal, getting out to an open shooter. And they did have him, he did struggle kind of figuring out where to go, and they were getting a lot of good looks both inside and out. Lively was anticipating better and covering a lot more ground than Gafford was. And that closed things off a bit, where the driving lanes weren't there because he was where he needed to be, and they weren't able to get it out to open shooters because he was anticipating better. And I thought that was a little bit of a change just in terms of the way Dallas played their defense there. Other than that, yeah, the guys hit the shots. That to me, I find less sustainable, Bobby, because we were talking about this a little bit off the air last game and maybe a little bit on the show. Sure, like those guys got hot, and some people might say like, oh, geez, well, now that they, you've got better games out of Hardy and Exum, and, Washington hit some threes and even Lively hits one. Does that wake them up? And even Jesus, everybody was freaking out over Hardaway hitting garbage time threes. I mean, that to me is fool's gold, which is there's guys who play limited roles and who are on the bench that if they did it all the time, they wouldn't play in limited roles and be on the bench. There's a reason they do, because doing it again is the hard thing. It's like I say, I always use that golf analogy. Sure, one day you went out and shot an 80, but if you average 98, chances are next time you're going to shoot 105. You're not going to shoot an 80 again. It's just not you. That's not who you are. You're the guy who averages, 98 to 102 every time you go out and play. That's who those guys are, or a lot of them. Otherwise, they'd be starting and scoring 15, 18 points a game. That's not who they are. So, yeah, could they repeat it? Sure. Will they do it on the road with the pressure of going home? I wouldn't bet on it. So that bothers me less. It's really whether the Celtics can I'm not worried about Dallas and those guys. It's whether the Celtics can unlock their offense against this team. Oh, you're muted, Bobby. Sorry.
The one thing I look at with the shot making there that you mentioned is the fact that they left so many of those guys wide open in those spots prior to that game. And we're pulling up the numbers now in terms of wide open. Dante Exum 2 or 3. Kleber hit an open three. Lively hit that wide open three in the corner.
Good, but I
So
want to give
those are
Kleber
shots.
and Lively those shots. I want to give Kleber, I will live with open shots from Kleber, Lively, Jones all day long. Exum's proven he can hit them, but again, anything that isn't but from Kyrie and Luka is fine. Washington, obviously, you want to defend a little bit better. I think you're conceding those above the break threes to those guys. Absolutely. Like, that's something that they're going to give up. I dare them to get hot again. And if they do, you say, well, they got hot again.
Yeah, there's just the possibility that continues when they're
Of
wide
course,
open, and that's
but there's
when you're
also the
going to start to
possibility
get
that
put in a bind.
yeah, but I mean, there's a possibility that Derek White has one of his 8 3-pointer games too. You know what I mean? It's like I'd bet on Hauser and White and even Tatum and Horford coming alive from three much more than I would bet on those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just
And
not
I'm
worried
looking.
about Kleber and Jones and Exum. I'm just not when the answer is guys you're that are struggling to get into your rotation. Like if Pritchard had a good game, I wouldn't be saying like Pritchard is the answer to the next game. It's just not how it works for me. Like that's how I view it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not going to be what dictates his success when Doncic is on the ball as much as he is and he has to do as much as he does. A lot of it's going to be him carrying them the way he did in game 3. But effect of him doing that is other guys getting freed up to do some stuff. And they don't need to do much because he can do so much of that heavy lifting. And you start to wonder how much you're going to react to that heavy lifting and the big production that he's doing right now because your game plan through 3 games that worked so successfully was guarding him straight up, living with the baskets he scores, and trying to make sure all those other guys get shut down completely. Which is why, as I look at the numbers here, there really aren't a ton of wide open shots that they're giving up to some of these other guys. Like Jones was 1 for 5 on wide opens coming into game 4. Green was 1 for 4. Kleber 0 for 2. That's not a ton of shots that you're giving up to those guys. Just because Luka's shooting so many, and in other circumstances, they're covered up. So he's not able to kick out and have the assists. Remember in game 1, John, he had 1 assist. Luka did. So that game plan was working so well. If it's cracks start to form in that, you obviously have quite a bit of leeway here with the 3-0 lead where you don't have to substantially react to a big Luka game, but do you react to 2 Luka games? At that point, you're in that Golden State territory a little bit again, where we're all sitting there watching Curry go crazy in 2022 against the drop, but everyone else is getting limited because of it. And then you switch up and actually try to address Curry and everyone else starts going crazy. So that's the only thing I look at right here coming out of game 3 and say, did you overreact to Luka and what he was doing just a little bit to where those guys actually got freed up to do some stuff? Because they don't need to do a ton.
Yeah, they don't. They don't. But again, like
They
I
were
said,
doing nothing, John. That was the problem previously. If you go from nothing to something, that's a pretty big win for Dallas at that point.
defensively, you mean?
Offensively.
Oh, the bench guys?
The role guys, yeah.
Yeah, again, I know it's nothing from something, but it's if you're gonna let Dallas beat you somewhere, that's where I want to see it happen. Again, that's you're living with that if you want to do that. You're trying not to Joe's game plan doesn't change, right? Limit lobs and corner threes, and we will let those guys shoot. If you lose that game because that collection of players you mentioned there beat you with a bunch of above the break threes, you lost that game. That's out. Go ahead and do it. I dare you to do it in 5 and then in 6 and then in 7. There's no freaking way. There's no way.
Yeah.
If you look at it as I'm not changing my game plan because it happened once, I'm gonna dare you to beat me with this 4 times. That's the right approach. That's the right approach in my opinion. So I'm not changing anything in terms of how you defend. You just have to defend better. There was miscommunication all over the place and early, and you don't want to leave wide open shooters, but they didn't do a good job. They didn't do a great job on the ball. Irving was getting where he wanted to go inside the paint there as well. So yeah, that's how I view it there. This was a theme that we talked about. I'm curious from everybody you spoke to today and I asked Tillman about it, and I know a couple of people spoke on it, was this notion of did the Celtics I asked Tillman specifically, were you more worried about winning a championship rather than winning game 4? If that makes sense. Like, were you just thinking we're going to win the title and like all that comes with that versus the task at hand, which was what you needed to do to win that specific game? Because some people, yourself included, particularly with the whole Kristaps victory cigar, suit up but not really play thing, you were obviously like, were these guys thinking about the champagne celebration more than they were thinking about the job of beating the Mavericks in game 4? What do you get the sense that some people thought that? That question was asked a couple of times in a couple of different things that I was in here. So I'm not sure if the players gave that up to you.
Yeah, I definitely think that's obvious. And whether it was thinking about the celebration or thinking they had it in the bag, or the more prevalent thing I heard, which is they had a pressure on themselves to win that game, or put a pressure on themselves to win that game to get it done that night. You heard them take the opposite approach today. And I know someone already pointed out in the chat is that you heard the notion that you don't have to win game 5. Like, this isn't game 7 here. You can play freely. You cannot put that pressure on yourself. And if you fall short or you lose a tough one, you still have game 6 at that point. And if you lose that one, you still have game 7. So it seemed like the mindset that they were talking about as players is that the series isn't going to get decided on Monday. You just have to show up and play your game. And if you lose, you lose. You still have another chance at that point. Whereas in game 4, I think they felt like they played it with a do or die kind of pressure. And that pressure just weighed too much on them. And I'm sure it's different for every guy, right? Like, I'm sure there's some guys in that room who are like, we got this. And other guys, and Joe especially, who are like, we haven't won anything yet. This is the game right here. Boom, boom, boom. Details, all that stuff. Because Joe was in that right mindset, obviously, right? And then I'm sure there's some guys in there who
It was our fault,
felt a little
Bobby.
too much pressure.
It was our fault.
Well, I mean, we're allowed to think that way, but they can't.
Exactly. What do you guys want? Us to be confident or think that they're going to blow a 3-0 lead? I'm curious. Again, it absolutely looked like
I'm still sitting here talking like the series is over, and I'm going to continue to.
Most
I
people
there,
are, but fear has crept in somewhat, and people are looking for people to blame. And so, yeah, it was the media's fault.
I don't think you should be fearful at all until they lose tomorrow, and then the panic meter can go up to red. Going back,
but that's
to
the whole
Dallas.
point. Is you're jumping in your mind. People are jumping ahead currently to what if they lose tomorrow panic rather than waiting to see if they lose tomorrow. You're either going to be thrilled because they won the title, or you're going to be freaking the F out because it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is going 7. And that's going to happen to some people. There's no question about it. So, I get it, but everyone jumps.
Someone's asking in the chat here, John, do you like them saying however long it takes, it's not all about Monday? Or would you rather them be like, Monday's a game 7 for us in our mind? There's no way we can leave Boston.
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. We're going to get Josue Pavone on in a little bit as well. But I don't think it matters. And I'm going to get Josue's take on this also as soon as we bring him on. First off, I do want to let people know.
Whatever works?
I'll give you my take on that in a second. We'll get Josue's take as well. I do want to let people know here, you got another chance to get in on the action here with Prize Picks. If you want to get involved with the NBA Finals, #1 fantasy sports app, more than 5 million members. Fun, exciting. Get in on the action. Watch your favorite sports. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and that's it. You're good to go. You're locked in. You can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game. That's all you have to do. And it's not just the finals. After that's done, you can get into the WNBA. Some spice today between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. That got a little bit interesting with a little side swipe, a little Mikhail Rambis action. Not quite. It got a little physical, but hey, it's the WNBA. They play hard. A lot of different things you can get involved with. Group play. You get injury insurance, so you don't have to worry if a player gets hurt in the first half. You're covered. All you got to do is download that app. Use the code CLNS. First deposit match up to $100. Once again, download the app. first deposit match up to 100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And we told you guys this was going to happen, and it happened. Seats have gone bananas, but you got to, if you want to get in on that game and a potential clinch, check out Game Time. It's got the best deals out there right now. And again, I'm seeing it kind of all over the place now. It got up pretty high. There's certain times where you see the tickets dip. And again, it's an authorized ticketing marketplace here is what Game Time is, and a chance for you to get in, and probably the easiest and the best way to see the finals. But yeah, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So you're going to want to take care of this. You want to take advantage of this deal. You download the app, use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Once again, terms to apply. Download that app. Use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terrific place to go get your finals tickets. Great app. Very easy. Immediately you see panoramic views of the seats that you might be selected. Prices actually go down the closer you get to Game Time, so you can kind of roll the dice there and see what you get, see if you get lucky. Pull the Toscano, head down to a bar, vibe a little bit with the city, and check it out. The Toscano, and see whether or not you might be able to get into the game and potentially through the Celtics clinch the NBA Finals banner 18 tomorrow. Game Time is the place. Once again, use that code CLNS after you download the app. $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Bringing in Josue Pavone, and we'll get his take on what Bobby had said before, whether or not the Celtics saying things today, Josue, like, as long as it takes, this and that, winning the series versus no, we need to win it here. I don't think it matters. I'll flip it to you, Bobby. If they said we've got to win Game 5, that's almost panic-inducing. That to me gives off the vibe that they'd be extremely worried if they didn't win Game 5, thinking that was a must-win. You're up 3-0 or 3-1. You have to take the long view in my eyes, but maybe some people feel differently about it. But to me, we're here to win 4 games in a series. We want to win every game, but if you start admitting that this one is a huge one because you definitely don't want to go back to Dallas for Game 6 and then have to return here for Game 7, you're almost conceding that you're panicked. I don't know your thoughts, Josue.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat, man. I just think it's one of those, it doesn't really matter, but if you act like you're really scared about going back, then it paints that you're nervous. It paints that you have something to be afraid of. But at the same time, I can see why Celtics fans don't like it, but I don't think it really matters. I don't think we'll look back if they were to lose tomorrow. I don't think we would look back and say, "Oh, well, look at the way they were talking beforehand. Their head weren't in the game. They were thinking this thing's going to go 7, or they didn't take care of business." They know what they need to do, and they've had enough experience to know that this thing could blow up in your face if you don't take care of business Monday night. But at the same time, I don't want to hear them say that either. So yeah, I'm with you, John. It's one of those things where it's like, if you say you're really afraid to go back, then you kind of sounds like you're afraid, you're scared to have to go, and that you're not confident enough to go back in Dallas and win it. But at the same time, I think they know that this is your best shot. Get it done. And these guys, the Dallas Mavericks, are the ones with their backs against the wall.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, Bobby. I don't know.
I
don't know, Bobby, if you see it differently. I'm not super concerned, but I think it's natural.
Right, it's going to be how they play,
of course. But what's natural right now is what's happening is, again, people are nervous. I think it was the manner in which they lost Game 4 that freaked people out, because if you drop a close one, you'd be like, well, it's on the road. It happens, whatever. I do it again. But when you get your ass kicked, that you remember that a little bit. And I think it's in people like, I didn't think Dallas could do that to us, is how people are feeling. And knowing that they could and did changes your vibe a little. Like, I didn't think they had that in them.
Yeah, but don't you think Joe likes that though? I feel like Joe likes that they lost by that much. Like, see how bad it can get when you don't do what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? It's like the classic line when he said, right when you think you're about to knock somebody out is usually when you get punched or something like that.
Choked out. Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. I'd feel bad. I'd feel worse if the Celtics didn't play like such ass and miss so many shots. But
would you have pulled your starters that early though? I'm not against it, but I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Right?
My one concern heading into the game was Horford playing his first game of the series with only a single day's rest and holding up, and the load that he has to play. Not blaming the game on Horford by any means, but I was already a little bit worried there, and their bigs definitely were more impactful in this game. And whether it was Horford or some of the other guys that had gotten away switching on to Kyrie and Luka weren't as successful this game. I do think with 2 days off, you're getting fresh Celtics plus the home crowd plus just law of averages in terms of getting the shooting variance to kind of tilt in your favor and have one of those types of games. If it's going to happen, I feel like game 5 is a pretty good spot. You don't want to rely entirely on, well, let's hope the shots fall. But honestly, like that, you don't have to hope with this team. Over a long, Joe Mazzulla's game plan in terms of, the math that he uses and what he wants to see happen works over a long timeline, but it doesn't work every game. And when it's not working, people are like, all they're doing is jacking threes. They had to jack threes last game. They had to hope that it eventually turned in their favor to have any chance of getting back. And shit just snowballed because everyone was trying to do it all by themselves. And they weren't getting quality looks. They weren't working hard enough to get them, and everything got away from them. I want them to absolutely go out there and shoot 50 threes tomorrow.
Yeah, and they're going to.
They're going to.
Part of how they're going to try to navigate the lack of paint touches they have. But they did a bad job getting there in the last game. I think they only had like 26 points in the paint. There wasn't that urgency to get inside. And that's a big part of what made me feel like Tatum could become the MVP before that game is how consistently he got there. You saw the drives go way, way up. You saw him make that attempt every play to get inside and kick out, and that's what is having him average 6+ assists per game, as you see there. So to see that come to an end tells me more than anything else that this was an effort issue. This was an attention to detail issue on the boards where they got killed for the first time there. Things happened in that game that didn't happen earlier in the series when the Celtics paid a substantive level of attention to the things that they need to do, as Josue said there. The problem to me is that it happened at that level where no one did anything right in that game. And they were so caught off guard or unprepared or whatever it was that's the result that happened. And it's a similar circumstance here, right? There'll still be that pressure to win it all. There'll be the crowd pressure. That crowd's going to be rocking. They're going to be expecting the championship to happen on Monday. That pressure on Boston isn't changing, and it only builds with every extra game they play now. So if that's what impacted them or that's what got them out of sync mentally there, it's almost fitting that, again, they're going to win this series, but it would be pretty fitting for as frustrating as these guys have been.
Yeah,
and
they're going to win this series, he said, as he took a drink from his whiskey. That's
the thing, John. Wouldn't it be so Celtics, so Tatum and Brown era
to take it
for
to
them
7?
For them to win the championship by the skin of their teeth in 7 games after being up 3-0?
Hey, that's last year's
I'm not
team,
going
man.
there.
This is a different team. They reminded
No,
of
but the old Celtics pop out every
year.
so often, Josue, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not going there. I think they get it done Monday, but man, things are a little different, Josue. Porzingis isn't here. You need those Tillman minutes.
I know, Bobby, but I just don't. I don't trust those other guys from Dallas, right?
Well,
the ones that are gonna have to. They're gonna have to pretty much duplicate what they did, and that includes Kyrie Irving. And not to call him another guy, but let's face it, he's not the same player that we saw in Dallas when he's in TD Garden. He hasn't been since he left, pretty much, or stomped on the logo, whichever side, or you think, whatever the reason may be. Clearly, these fans get to him, and he can't focus. And even in a potential elimination game, I don't know if we get a better version of what we've seen in Kyrie in Boston. I'm not quite sure.
That's a big one.
I predict
so bad.
I predict he'll play better than what we saw in games 1 and 2. But is that enough? Like, Dallas needs a lot out of him. Pretty much what he did in game 4, which was his best game of the series.
Is Kyrie ready for Boston, John? It didn't sound like it today.
Especially efficient
Well,
Kyrie. That was efficient Kyrie in Game 4.
We'll get into Kyrie because I do want to get to that. The
Oh, I
other
didn't miss
thing
the Kyrie segment. All right, cool.
no, we haven't done Kyrie and we haven't fully done Kristaps because I do think it's important because we do want to kind of discuss it. There were some vibes about, okay, are they being cautious or coy? Did he dress up as a human victory cigar just to go out there, walk around the court if they clinched in Dallas? Did he dress up because why not? Doesn't matter. And they were never going to play him up 3-0 because they felt like, oh, what's the need here? We'll put him in later in the series as we need to. My contention has always been.
Adam Himmelsbach tried to get him to talk today, and
Yeah,
he was willing
I
to,
saw that.
but wasn't allowed to.
Yeah,
was that a one-on-one, or was there other people around him when he asked?
Or did he walk out thinking he was at the podium and realized he wasn't, and then they shut him down?
Option
C.
it
wasn't clear from the tweet.
It wasn't clear, but
otherwise, why is he out there? Yeah,
so he went out there, and as I said, we saw the video of him. I mean, when we talk about, look, there's nothing going on at these things of any note. It doesn't matter. This is what we see is nothing. They're not going through a workout. And honestly, even Joe's called these things walkthroughs. They're not practicing hard. But Porzingis was out there shooting shots over the backboard, and just messing around. Really didn't move at all. And it's fine. There's a bunch of Tatum was just stretching. It's not a big deal if he weren't injured.
There's people dancing out there, but yeah.
Yeah, there's people. This is not anything that he was doing, but he's still smiling. He's still in good spirits. But the question was, is there any chance that he plays? And that the plan was they'll play him when they need him. And I asked Avery Tillman, a couple questions about it today. I was talking, over at his podium, and here's what he had to say.
I don't know. I mean, when we go through our practice and stuff like that, he's doing some stuff, but you could still tell that he's very uncomfortable. So, like I said, we don't want to put him in any type of situation that could really, really hurt him,
Do you see improvement as each day goes on, or it's still kind of a tough thing?
Yeah, it's been pretty much the same. I'm not a trainer either, so yeah, I don't really know.
He's like, shit, maybe I shouldn't say that, but
so Tillman kind of gave away a lot. He looks bad. He doesn't look comfortable. I don't know that he should have said that. I wasn't fishing for tell me he looks bad. I honestly thought the answer would be yeah, he looks better every day. Yeah, he's working hard to get boilerplate. He's looking hard to get out there. Right. Instead, it was he's very uncomfortable. And I think that's the reality. Is he's not. I don't think it's a rest. I don't think he gets better. This thing needs surgery. It's not going to be better without it. He's going to feel this way. Maybe they shoot it up and he tries to play a little bit, but I'd be stunned. I really do believe anyone holding out hope should not hope it. And again, guys, you got to stop with the everyone's got to stop with the gamesmanship thing. I don't think it's in their plans to play Porzingis.
So I don't want to do this again, John.
Very pleasantly surprised if he plays. And if they got us and he goes out and plays, I'll apology cam it again. I promise. You've got it. I'm not being negative. I think he needs surgery.
I'm thinking the same, John. I'm thinking a Game 7 scenario is the only way.
I don't think he wanted or needed. I don't think he can possibly be effective. And I think it might be a distraction. You might want to put it out of your mind completely, the idea of Porzingis playing, and just beat him with the guys that you have, which again should be enough.
Yeah, and I don't want to go there again, but if it's medical and he can't play, why is he questionable?
Don't put him in street clothes, Bobby.
Well, Bobby, I mean, geez, we had, what's his name? Jared Allen was questionable for 7 straight games, and he was out to play. He was out before each game. Last game, again, I think whether or not you agree with the tactics, we agree why they did it was probably because.
So they're going to do it again?
Again, I don't know that unless you think it's a massive distraction to the team to do it. It feels like every player understands Porzingis is not playing, and all they're doing is, dress up and sit on the bench so you can be part of this thing. That's it. I don't think it's a controversy with the team, but I do think fans have to wrap their minds around. I think fans have to probably wrap their mind around Porzingis is probably not playing.
Right.
And then so anyone holding out hope for it, that he's going to be a savior here, I do think it doesn't matter what we think. Well, the reality is that the Celtics are probably going to have to win without him. That's it.
Yeah, and so Tillman, a lot of it does fall on him. He's actually important now, and as part of a bigger group of guys who are going to switch on the Luka and guard him on every pick and roll over the 10 minutes where you don't have Horford out there. So, and of course, Horford has to log the bigger minutes now at that point and hold up too. So it's tougher without Porzingis, Josue. It certainly is, and the numbers show it. They're -10 per 100 when he's not out there, and I think they're like +27 per 100 when he is. They were dominating. They were up 3-0 in this series, in large part because of Porzingis' contributions in those first 2 games. He just made it uncompetitive with how good he was.
Yeah, no question. And I think if you're the Dallas Mavericks, you know that too. I think you're beyond trying to game plan for a hypothetical situation where Kristaps was thrown back in, and for some of these guys, I think it doesn't really matter in a sense of like they don't want to even think back to what it was when it was like when Kristaps was out there. I think we're so deep in the series that both teams sort of know what's up. And again, like I said before, when Joe was as transparent as he was, I think that's what really spoke volumes to me, because that type of stuff he doesn't ever say. And for him to call it a serious injury, I think says a lot. And then of course the caveat of, yes, he's active, but it was like, oh, okay, so that's where he's at. But look, the Celtics, Tillman, I mean, they don't have. They're not in a situation like the Dallas Mavericks where Joe Mazzulla has to go deep into his bench and play guys. Like they have enough to get this done. Like you said earlier, Bobby, a sense of guys getting more 3-point shots. I think that's definitely in the cards for tomorrow night. Just in the sense of how the Celtics respond historically after losses. Like that's just usually like that's what you don't have to worry about, right? And I'm not saying they're going to go out there and have to take 53s to win it, but they're going to be encouraged to take as many threes as they can, or at least set themselves up for not passing up those great shots. And I like the chances of those going in, to be honest with you. Guys like Derek White, Drew Holiday, I think they bounced back from what we saw in Game 4. But yeah, in terms of the front court, I think we see the same in what we saw in Game 4, in the sense of Tillman being slotted in there, getting his stints. Hopefully he can give these guys some extra muscle off the bench. But yeah, I mean, Al's going to be in a big spot here, but I think he's ready for it. I think he's confident. I think he knows that the opportunity that he has right here to get this done in Boston, being the starting center, I think is pretty cool, man, for someone who's 38 years old and has been impactful as much as Al's been. So it would be a great way to finish things off for sure.
And we'll see. Be ready, Luke. Stay ready, Luke.
Sorry,
Luke's officially stay ready if Xavier doesn't hold up, because you can't go small here. And the rebounding disparity, the rebounding ability of Dallas is going to prevent you from doing that in this
That's
series.
The thing. People are saying things in the chat like Tatum at the 5. Not against this team, guys. It worked fine. We were begging for it against Indiana, where it would have worked, because Miles Turner's not a classic 5 either. He likes to play out, away from the basket. Really no interior presence. You're not worried about getting killed on the glass here. These guys will murder you if you go
and they
small
did.
like that.
65 to 29
and
or whatever
they did,
it was.
even when you weren't. And again, you were small when Tillman's coming in and Horford is out. That's a small team, and they got murdered. And there's nothing that's a better equalizer for playing good defense, shutting a team down, and giving them freebies on the offensive glass, extending possessions. That's a killer, because you try your ass off for 20 seconds of the shot clock, shutting things down, and then just boom, you're just giving that up. So it's going to be a team effort on the glass. They got to hit it, and they can't let up there, because that's a clear disadvantage for them with that. So again, the Porzingis thing, I hate that that's it, but I think that's it for him personally here. So they got to do it with what they've got. Beyond that, we're on the Kyrie Irving adventure train once again. What does this have to do with the series? Nothing.
Train's never late. It's always coming back.
It's never late. What does it have to do with basketball? Nothing. Does anybody actually care? No. But he makes it impossible to not talk about, because on and off he goes. And here's Kyrie Irving talking about again. So here's where it does matter. I'll tell you where it matters after you listen to the bizarreness that was Kyrie Irving today.
Championship pedigree here. They've shown it for years. They're one of the most
About playing in
franchise
Boston,
in all
having
sports.
played in Boston.
So you have to show your respects here, and I think that's what I struggled with initially, was figuring out how I'm going to be a great player here while winning championships, while also leading a team, and selflessly joining the Celtics organization, or the cult that they have here. And that's what they expect you to do as a player. They expect you to seamlessly buy into the Celtics pride, buy into everything Celtics, and if you don't, then you'll be outed. And I'm one of the people that's on the outs.
That's every organization.
I'm perfectly fine with that. You know what I mean? I did it to myself. They don't welcome me in with warm embrace, even though I know a lot of people in the organization, and my friends still here, some of them. But yeah, it was just a doing to myself, and that's what I was talking about in terms of accepting the choices. But looking back on it, definitely would have showed my respect and had more of a counsel around me from some of the Boston Celtics that came before me to explain what the pressure is like. So if any player is coming here or getting drafted here, or thinking about coming here free agency or getting traded here, I just think do your homework and make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. That's something I could offer.
Oh my God, it's freaking exhausting. He didn't buy into the cult of Celtics basketball. Like, can you try any harder to take any responsibility? Dude, everybody knew you were a weirdo. People didn't even give a crap about the flat earth shit. If you stayed and played well, you formed a coup. You left with somebody else. You formed a super team elsewhere after saying you were going to sign, and then you tanked in the playoffs.
But he never talked about that, John. That's what drives me
He's
crazy.
addressing everything except that.
Exactly.
You absolutely mailed it in the playoffs because you knew you were out of here, and everybody is furious over that. And you pissed all over the up-and-coming stars and messed with their heads by not being a good leader. Everyone hated what you did to what was left, not you. So he'll never get it, and that's fine. I don't care. I don't need to be right or have Kyrie Irving to think that we're right about how things ended here. It doesn't matter to me. What does matter is this insufferable bullshit means he's constantly thinking about this and Boston, and he's sucked here, and he sucked in games 1 and 2, and you're wondering whether or not he's incapable of keeping this shit out of his head when he plays games in the TD Garden, and he might be.
Especially because of how poorly he's played. You look at 6 for 19 in game 1, 7 for 18 in game 2. The numbers aren't good here. 4-13, 2022 in that first round series, 12 of 20 in that first game. But, the middle fingers are flying and going back and forth with guys. And that's still happening in the series, not as notably.
Yeah, the only thing, good point, George. The only thing he's ever taken responsibility or credit for about his time here is the Jays' growth. He's proud of that. He's proud of the role he played in their development. But that's it.
I just love how he never talks about the big why, which is the situation in Brooklyn, which is teaming up with Durant, his buddy, and getting another super team going. Just say that. It failed over there too. It's okay. You don't have to explain that part, but that was a big reason why you left. And at the end of the day, that's what Celtics fans soured over, obviously the promise and the fact that you just left, and look, wherever you are on that side of the conversation, okay, that's neither here or there at this point. It was freaking 7 years ago, whatever. But the point is, any player, any all-star, anyone who is positioned to be a leader of a team, you're supposed to embrace the culture. You're supposed to be, you whether you want to do your history or not is on you, but you're not supposed. The organization is not supposed to adapt to you. It's always the other way around. And look, I credit Kyrie for talking about maturing and saying how he's a different person now. Okay, if that's part of it, then okay, we get that. Anyone can understand something like that, right? But go out and say it. Don't make it sound as if you went into this thing not knowing what it was. I mean, I'm sure your dad must have told you a thing or two about the championships and the culture and the way things are expected, one to hold themselves accountable, all that
You
stuff.
could have talked to Max.
You could have talked to Max. I was about to say you could have talked to Paul. You could have talked to KG.
But he doesn't mean it. So I don't even know why we need to parse those, over those words. There's no hidden meaning in it. It's just a child trying to absolve himself of any responsibility or or of his own behavior. So none of it really matters to me. But the thing you said, Josue, I think is right on. It's like, it's expected of everywhere, right? Like, it doesn't matter where you go. It's like, hey, when you come here, we want you to play Washington Wizards basketball. Like
you love that.
And I say, you were doing with LeBron. We want all that.
I say that all the time. Like, we're playing Sacramento Kings basketball. Like, you haven't won anything freaking ever. Like, but everyone thinks they do things a certain way. The culture, all of that shit matters to people. So they say it throughout. But when you do go to the Knicks, the Lakers, the Celtics, the Spurs, maybe freaking understand that there's an expectation there beyond other places because of all of those things. So duh. Well, I mean, of course you're going to lean on your past. You're going to do it as best you can. So that's understandable. But again, do you think it's so in his head that there's a likelihood he comes out and struggles again because he sucks here?
I think so for sure. Absolutely. And the last thing I was going to say also, like, just if you're not going to say it, I'm just going to say it for him. You weren't, and you still aren't ready to be a number one on a championship team. Like, that's what you learned here in Boston. Like, that's really what it boils down to. And maybe one day you say it in a book or something, but until that happens, I'm always going to be thinking that as well. So.
No, fire. I mean, that's a great take because Bobby's jumping on a radio interview. He had the bolt. We're going to hang out here for a few more minutes and we're going to wrap it as well. But that's 100% right. That's the irony of all of these things, right? You go somewhere you want to be the man. You realize it's really lonely as the man and you can't do it all by yourself. So you go and try to team up with superstars again. When you go and form a super team with freaking Durant and Harden, where do you think you fall in that pecking order? 3, my man, and not even a question at that point. And then, you end up on another team which has freaking Luka, who's no worse than the second best player in basketball. You're second fiddle again. All of these guys do it. They always go places where there's other people because the NBA isn't built on a lone superstar league anymore. You want to sit here and argue on the Tatum versus Brown 1 versus 1A shit. That's fine. But reality is like you need a couple of all-stars and really good up and coming players, like a Maxey, coming up, or one of those types of guys, a Halliburton and this and that, or a veteran team where you've got guys who know what the hell they're supposed to do with White and Holiday, obviously Porzingis. This is bordering on a super team with the amount of talent that the Celtics have here. You're not winning on your own anywhere. So this, you're never going to be that guy. But again, I do wonder what's going on with Kyrie and how he feels ending into this game. It's another wild card. We said this before, right? The Mavericks can win with if Kyrie and Luka both have big games. They cannot if they don't. The Celtics can also still win if Kyrie and Luka have big games, and they've done it this series. But they did it in game 3. They can beat them when just those guys go off, which is again what I'm counting on for the rest of the way. Because as you mentioned right when you came on, it's one of the first things I hit on. I dare the role players on the Mavericks to repeat this, not just in game 5, but in 5 and 6 and 7. So you can. Kyrie goes soft in one of these Garden games, lights out. That's it. They don't have enough. They don't have enough firepower. Lights out. So again, the reason I point to this is without almost any prompting, this guy comes in here, should have been riding as high as he could possibly be riding all series, and starts with this dumb shit again. It's in his head.
It has to be in his head. And if this is his way to try to motivate himself, Kyrie, it hasn't been working, man. Like, he's been doing this for years. And if TD Garden takes it a step further and playing these quotes or a video clip from what you said today, it's going to get everyone even more fired up and ready to go. And that's the thing, man. Like, guys like Lively and Gafford, man, they had tremendous performances in game 4, right? It's exactly the kind of type of play that these guys really need on a night-to-night basis throughout the series to be competitive, to even keep up with the Celtics. But can those guys do that in Boston? Especially if Kyrie gets off to a slow start? That's a huge ask, That's a huge ask for guys who already were just like stunned in game one. It took them a little bit to adapt. And then as soon as they sort of somewhat found some comfort, they went back to Dallas, or they went off to Dallas. Now they're back in Boston. And honestly, man, if it's a slow start for Kyrie in that first half, it's going to be, it wouldn't shock me if it's the same thing for those guys, and it carries over, you know?
Yeah. I do wonder how that's going to,
he has to have a humongous start. Honestly, like I think it's that important for these guys and their momentum.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I do think, you know, we talked about whether Joe liked the result. I don't think so. I think Joe was definitely taken aback by the loss. You could tell in the tone of his press conference today. He was, you know, Washburn asked him a question that gets swatted 10 rows deep after, you know, under normal circumstances. And he answered it straight up.
He did it straight up. Yeah, that's true.
I'm done messing around. But I do think he is, I think he feels good and confident that his guys got a message that was freaking embarrassing, you know? So I do think that I don't think every single Celtics player can have the worst game of the playoffs all at once again. And so that's why I feel a little bit better here. And I don't know that the Mavericks can repeat the performance they got in game 5. So I feel good about it still in game 5, but you're right. We're going to be smashed. As much as I want you guys to smash the like button, we're going to be smashing the panic button if they lose game 5.
Game 6, oh man, yeah, that's not good.
Look, one way or the other, CLNS is with you all the way. Keep it here for great coverage all the way through. As you know, we have you covered, whether it's in the comfort of our home or in arena or on the road. We're going to be there. We'll all be out in Dallas once again. If it goes to a game 6, we'll all be at the Garden tomorrow covering the game. So make sure you join us throughout the day for continuous Celtics coverage. Check out CLNSmedia.com for all of our written work as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channels and just hang out with us. And then we want you guys to bring the energy tomorrow. If it's a post-game show, we're going all friggin' night long. Okay.
Pretty much.
So we're going to hang out with you guys as long as we can and enjoy it with you, all the way through. So we always appreciate you guys joining us, and we can't wait to see you all en masse tomorrow, hopefully celebrating a win and banner 18. That's right. Nothing changes. It was one more.
Whoa.
And it remains one more. And yes, perhaps this ends Monday, which will be great for the Celtics and great for the fans. Sad for us because we will miss you guys. But yes, let's get it done Monday. Thank you guys again for hanging out with us. Josue Pavone, Bobby Manning took off. Tomorrow we'll have the whole cast as well, along with Jimmy Toscano and Sherrod Blakely. So make sure you hang out with us right here on the stream as we bring you Celtics post-game coverage. We'll be doing some pre-game stuff as well. Thank you all, and we will see you tomorrow. Oh, wait. I got to hit my little outro. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care, guys.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game.
Phenomenal game.
Forfeit's out. I think it's an option. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.